Saramu joins us. He's the Vice President of the Nigerian Labour Congress and also the Secretary General of the Alumni Association of National Institutions. Thank you for joining us this morning. Well, let's pick up on this one because it's a lead story, I think, in this day today where Labour spoiling for showdown. But first of all, you're aware of the amendment of the Constitution by the Senate and that part where they have taken minimum wage issues away from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Well, Labour has spoken about this previously. I think they even went to the National Assembly on this same matter. So what do you think now? Did your cry fall on deaf ears, or they listened and implemented what Labour had been requesting for?
I think, Chimbele, first, good morning, and good morning to our viewers. I think it's, I'm happy that you went to memory lane, and it is clear that this amendment by the Senate is done in bad faith. It's an abuse of trust, and the Senate has to do as much as possible to regain the confidence of Nigerians, and Nigerian workers in particular. I'm happy you recall that we have been on this issue for the past 1 year. Exactly 19th of September 2013, we were on the street to protest to the National Assembly. Of course, the House of Rep understood the need to retain labor issues, including minimum wage, on the exclusive list of the Constitution. But it was the Senate that was trying to push labor issues to the concurrent list. And we had a massive demonstration, in which we went to the Senate, and the Senate President, distinguished Senator David Mark, addressed us and gave us the assurance that, the Senate was now better informed, about labor position. And what has been the labor position? The labor position is that labor issues should be retained on the exclusive list of our Constitution, just as it has been from 1963 down to 1979, for obvious reasons. Labor is a factor of production, and if you want to, motivate labor for development, you must give labor certain minimums, environment to operate. Just the same way you have capital issues dealing with capital and finance. They are on the exclusive list of the Constitution. And what are these minimum issues? Is that you must have minimum wage, minimum hours of work, minimum safety condition in the workplace, regardless of whether workers are from private sector or public sector or state or federal. And in the case of minimum wage, the issue is clear. The whole idea is that if you don't have minimum wage, some employers will pay miserable pay. I'm so happy to listen to your report this morning about the dichotomy between the polytechnic and the university graduate being resolved. If you don't have minimum wage in place, some employers, especially private sector, where I'm talking about some Asian employers, they will pay graduates, whether they are polytechnic or university graduate, they will pay them 5,000 naira. So I think the whole idea is that you must have minimum floor below which below which no worker will earn, and the same thing applies for minimum hours of work. And Nigeria is signatory to ILO conventions. This is the tradition in different countries of the world that we are competing with. And the Senate concur with us. In fact, David Mark confessed that he never knew these were the issues. And they said it was some governors who are putting pressure. And we said, no, the governors were ill-informed and they were self-serving. You know very well these governors who don't want to pay 18,000 minimum wage, they are the ones using private jets. They even have private terminals now for themselves. Nobody sees them again in the air. You don't see them on the road. They have all sorts of indulgences for themselves. Also, the same governors have minimum pay for themselves. The governors are not paid based on ability to pay off their states. There's a minimum pay for them, even including the senators. Senators are not paid based on what comes from their constituency. There's a minimum pay for all of them. So why do you want to apply this double standard to the working people? I think it's ill-informed. It's an abuse of trust, and I hope the Senate will be able to reverse its position. Failing which, we have the right to return back to the streets and use all our industrial power within the context of the law to protect the gains of Nigerian workers, which cannot be whimsically eroded by the Senate. I want to commend the House of Reps, for still keeping faith with Nigerian people, which is that labor must be on the exclusive list. I'm also a member of I was a member of the National Conference the concluded conference, and I thought Chief Goditu Iwazuruke, who just spoke with you, will be able to concur. About 4 committees of the national conference, all agreed that labor is too important to be delisted from the exclusive list, and we all insisted must be on the exclusive list. And the entire report of the national conference, said labor must be on the exclusive list of the constitution. So I think the senior position, is against the wishes of Nigerian people, and it cannot fly. And let me tell you, the next election in this country will be determined. We are going to, all Nigerian workers and Nigerian citizens, we choose whoever represents us, whether at the Senate, at the House of Rep, at the governorship level, including presidency, based on how they treat the working people of this country.
Are you going to follow through on that? How many people will remember, because you don't have that list of how senators voted on a particular bill, how members of the House of Reps voted on a particular bill, and then run on the political field with those ones, holding them accountable to how they voted? How will that play out when the chips are down?
The crisis of governance in this country is complete disconnect between those who govern us and the interests of the people. And I'm very sure that this amendment will not definitely stand, as the case may be. Now we are just celebrating the success story we've recorded in the fight against Ebola. But we must also make the point that this success has been recorded on the backbone of the working people. Medical personnel, doctors, nurses, most of them who actually died at the front line. In fact, the very victims of Ebola were the working people, who were either at the airport or at the hospitals, who had to treat this area who came to the country. So there's no way we could achieve this success, in fighting Ebola if you have not created certain minimum conditions for the working people to operate. What it means, if you remove labor issues, not just minimum wage, from the exclusive list, what you are doing here is that there will be multiple standards for treating of the workers. You can't deregulate the fight against Ebola based on the way you are going to handle the working people. So what I'm saying is that I think they have to know what is at stake. And I think what I also discovered is that there is serious knowledge gap, within the ranks of those people who make laws for us in this country. People are forgetting, and I think some senators have to be reminded, that minimum wage is not administrative fiat fixed from Abuja. It comes through the process of collective bargaining. The recommendation of the national conference is that all stakeholders must take advantage of the machinery of collective bargaining to arrive at the minimum wage. The last minimum wage, which is still subsisting now, 18,000 naira, we did 2 years of extensive negotiation, which included the federal government, the state government, the central bank, Federal Office of Statistics, which is the Bureau of National Statistics today. We also brought organized private sectors, employers, they all bought into it. So it was a process of compromise, of negotiation. It's not as if they fix it. But what always happens is that governors are never on duty when it comes to interests of the working people, and they don't come there to make their case, the way they should be. But even then, some governors were at this last negotiation that we did, just like we had representation of the state government in 2000, representation of government in 1981 when we started minimum wage negotiation. So I think what we have seen is the quality of governance has somehow got down in recent time, especially at the upper end of the legislative chambers. I think they must know that this law passed through process of collective bargaining. And as I'm talking to you, we also put a clause there to say that we must be reviewing this minimum wage every 5 years, so that we avoid the shock, that always characterize, long stagnation. But if you keep on improving on it, gradually the quantum of increase will not be too high for all the stakeholders to be able to absorb. I think these are the issues we must get key into. All stakeholders must take advantage of collective bargaining process so that we have a sense of ownership of the outcome of minimum wage. So not for them to now say remove minimum wage from the exclusive list. It's purely unacceptable. And Chamberlain, what are we talking about? 18,000, at this hour, which even some private employers, without the struggle of the unions, they don't even still want to pay. What can 18,000 deliver? So we are saying that you need minimum pay for the working people before you can guarantee productivity for them. And Nigeria cannot be one of those countries we say one of the developed, one of the 20 leading economies. In 2020, if you pay them miserable pay, all the countries who are competing with have minimum wage in place. In fact, in UK, they review minimum wage every year. You know, America, which is the bastion of market economy, has federal minimum pay, you know, which is applicable to all workers who work in the United States, whether private or public sector. I think this cannot be different for us in Nigeria. Yes.